Hi, everyone. Welcome to Talks at Google. I'm Chalmers Brown. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a business systems analyst in our corporate engineering area. I now work on our Corp to Cloud project, but for most of my 5+ years here at Google, I've been working alongside our people operations team, building out systems like gHire, Perf, and Grow. Today's event is called Hustle Times Heart, the silver lining of work culture. And we are honored to be joined by Claude Silver, VaynerMedia's inaugural Chief Heart Officer, a first-of-its-kind position created to scale the company's people-first ethos. Claude champions empathy-driven leadership as she oversees talent management, employee experience, and recruitment for over 750 employees at VaynerMedia, which is a Gary Vaynerchuk company. For those of you who might not be familiar, Gary Vaynerchuk is a serial entrepreneur and the CEO and co-founder of VaynerMedia, which is a full-service digital agency serving Fortune 500 clients across the company's 4 locations. And Gary is also the host of a widely successful Ask Gary V show on YouTube.
I think he has a really popular channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think it's now Gary V.
Yeah. Claude's current role is the capstone of a career that spans nearly 20 years at numerous Fortune 50 companies, including senior leadership posts at J. Walter Thompson and Publicis in London. Her success in guiding employee experience, client relationships, global brand strategies, operations, and management is driven by an abiding passion for creating spaces in which people can thrive. Please join me in welcoming Claude Silver.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Good to be here. Really good to be here.
Thank you for being here. Quick housekeeping, please silence all devices, and we will have some time for Q&A at the end. Since we're recording, it's very important that if you have a question, please ask it at one of the 2 mics in the aisles. Okay. So for people in the audience who might not be familiar with VaynerMedia, what would you say is the company's mission, and how is that different from other companies in your industry or other companies in general?
Yeah, so VaynerMedia is a full-service digital agency, so we're really a creative shop that marries both paid media, creative, and strategy in the middle, not unlike a lot of other agencies that you probably work with, for sure. And Gary would say our mission is to build the biggest human empire of all time. I'd like to be a part of that for sure. But I think the differentiator for us is that we really do put people at the center. That because we're an independently owned agency, of course we want to make sure that we're paying attention to our top and bottom line and the growth there, but it is really the people that fuel all of that. And I personally think that the emphasis that we put on people, the emphasis that we put on culture, the emphasis that we even have a job like mine, which is very different than a chief HR officer, which we'll get to, I'm sure.
Yep.
That in itself sets us apart. I don't think it makes us better or holier than thou. I think it just makes us very different. And it is something that is hard to grok sometimes that, yeah, okay, well, are you just like Droga 5? Are you like Anomaly? We're different. We really beat to a different drum. And I think a lot of that is because of who Gary Vaynerchuk is and incredibly fast-moving empath that is known for hustle, but quite frankly, he's got a heck of a lot of heart.
Mm-hmm. So the term honey empire comes up frequently in reference to Vayner in your role. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, I can. There's a lot of different breakdowns, but I've definitely honed my verbatim, I think, at this point. There's 2 different ways I look at it. So being people first, that's obviously the honey. That is taking care of the people. That is making sure that if someone is having a bad day, we're taking care of them. If someone got engaged or married, we're celebrating that. It is really the idea of creating champions from one another. The collaboration, the emphasis on working together to create the biggest honey empire of all time. The empire, of course, is much more of the success. It's much more of the client success, the personal success, the agency shop success. So that is one way to look at it. The other way I like to look at it is something, actually, I am going to use this little easel. Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Hopefully I'm writing big enough for the camera. But fundamentally, if I think about how I look at building strong teams and building teams that are sustainable and they last, I look at starting with connection. Again, hopefully that can be read. So connection. As human beings, we are absolutely wired to belong. We are wired to connect with one another. Connection plus trust. So once I connect with you and I'm kind of like in it with you, we start to trust one another. I might let my guard down a little bit more. I might be a little bit easier with you. I might share something about myself with you. Plus empathy. So I trust now, but now I'm sharing something. Maybe I'm sharing about an issue I'm having on another team, or maybe I'm sharing something about a family issue or a celebration or something like that. Connection plus trust plus empathy, honey, equals accountability, which also is another way to say loyalty, longevity. So we want our people to be there with us for the long haul. We want Vayner people to be with us forever, quite frankly. Gary will say that. I want you to work with me forever. Accountability, longevity, resilience. Who doesn't need resilience in these times? I mean, things are changing. I'm sure you already launched 3 different products while I've been sitting here with you today. But the world of digital is changing every single second. So you need to be able to roll with those punches. And also, Gary is a disruptor. He's an entrepreneur. I mean, he could say today, by the time we get back, we're not going to do that, we're going to do this. And we all have to pivot very quickly. So resilience is really important in our teams and our people. Accountability, longevity, resilience equals speed. This is the empire right here. Speed is our #1 KPI. People first. Here are the feelings. Here are all the things that I care about all day long.
Right.
And here's the empire, the fact of how do we get it across the finish line. So I hope that answered the question in a very esoteric way.
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned, I think you probably get this question all the time. How is your role as Chief Heart Officer different from a traditional Chief HR Officer role?
Yeah, I'm not HR at all. I've never been HR. In fact, I started in '98, I think before Google, before Facebook, as a project manager in San Francisco, and then morphed my way into the agency side, on the client-facing side, and then found my home in strategy. And way back when, I was training to be a psychotherapist. So human development, human behavior is always something that's really fascinated me and still does to this day. That's kind of like everything for me, how we work, why we work, how we can work better. And so I've been a strategist for a very long time, almost 20 years. And I am not HR. I'm certainly now HR, and I'm more equipped and more educated in the science of HR and the benefits and international visas and laws and whatnot. But that's not my job. We have some incredible HR people in the crowd right now that are on my team, which is amazing, and they really take care of the HR factor, the science of it, the benefits, payroll, 401ks, and really the reviews, the review cycle, all of those things as well. So my job isn't. I mean, you would say that send that to Claude because she's head of HR, but I'm not. I get to oversee that which is, and I get to co-create with people that know more than I know in terms of HR. And Gary really sees himself as HR because he's a people-first person, and so the synergy that he and I have in terms of how we feel about people, our belief in people, our gut about people is really what created this role and why we call it heart, because we actually think of HR, which I have no idea what that really means, as heart. In fact, we changed the name of the department when I started to people and experience, because after all, that's what we're doing here. You have a department, people ops. It's very similar. Very similar. But the idea of human resources to me is very foreign. I don't get it. But if anyone wants to explain those two terms to me, I'm open. So people and experience, and really, I'm not chief of HR, but But again, we've got a great team that takes care of that.
Excellent. So one of the things you've called yourself is an emphatic truth teller. When you were describing what it was that Gary needed to sort of scale what he did for the organization as the organization expanded. What's the hardest truth you've had to tell, or at least the hardest one you can share with us?
It's empathic. Empathic. I think someone once called me an empathic truth.
Okay, maybe I
teller.
misheard that.
Maybe it's emphatic. I'm sure. Hopefully, it's enthusiastic. But it's hard. It is a challenge, I think, sometimes to confront someone with something they may not see about themselves. It's hard as another human being to take that bold step forward as just another learner in the world, and to think that I see something that they don't see. Mm-hmm. By no means am I, I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm not a physician, so it's really difficult to get up the gumption and want to shine a mirror in front of someone. And I think that's a difficult thing that we all have. However, when we give feedback and when we share something with another person, it's really an act of caring. Mm-hmm. So when I don't do that, I'm really withholding, quite frankly, I'm manipulating someone's growth and development. And the way I go about it is hopefully with as much grace, tact, and generosity of spirit as I possibly can. But that is something that I think you just have to step wisely into those shoes, cautiously, of course, because you never know how someone's going to react. But if you go into that truth, again, with empathy and with humility, my God, then I think the door can open to so much possibility, and that's what it's all about. Possibility.
Is there an example that you can think of where telling that truth?
There's an example. I mean, when did I get here? Outcome? So I think an hour ago, I was in a room with a very senior account holder, client service person, and this person was telling me that he has been exploring his team for the last 3 months, and these are the 3 buckets that he thinks are wrong with his team. So probably my age, he's in his 40s, and maybe he knows more about life than I do. I have no idea, but he and I have had many conversations over the past, I would say, 8 or 9 months about these issues in his team, and only today he's bringing them to me. Mm-hmm. So what I did say to him is, with all due respect, I really believe that you've been protecting your team this entire time. There's no need to protect your team. And these 3 buckets that you just shared with us should have been shared with me 9 months ago, because we could have fixed it. Mm-hmm. We didn't need to go through all the rigmarole and all the people issues and all the hardship and all the missed deadlines and all of those things if we just could get truth. So that's probably the most recent conversation, and he took it as well as can be. We'll see what happens when I get back to work. But again, you go into it with as much grace and just generosity. I want to help him. Mm-hmm.
So your role was created to help preserve Vayner's culture while it grows rapidly. We know a little bit about that here at Google. What are the elements of Vayner's culture that you most fear losing as you continue to expand and scale?
Yeah. So this role was created to scale Gary, and he says to scale the unscalable, which I think is a phenomenal way to say it. I mean, how do we scale culture? That's the big question. It's a question I get all the time, and a question I'm sure you guys get at almost 80,000 people, and wanting to maintain Google across the world. So our culture is really built on a few different values that I can say over the last 8.5 years are pretty tried and true. Empathy, which I will call heart. Mm-hmm. Speed, which I would call hustle and heart.
Yep.
Possibility. We work for an entrepreneur, and everything really is possible. There is a yes all the time until there isn't, but it takes a very long time to get to the no, if ever. Positivity. Mm-hmm. I mean, Gary over-indexes as an optimist. I'm probably very close behind him. and winning, competitiveness. And those are things I believe are still in our DNA, absolutely, over 8.5 years. But those are things that we need to continue to stoke the fire on. So for example, let's take the conversation that I just had. Mm-hmm. That conversation was out of line and out of touch with our culture because the winning was misguided. The wanting to win was cased in fear. Mm-hmm. That's not one of our values. It's not how we use and foster our culture. And so, and that's just talking to one individual. Where is that spread anywhere? I mean, so the most important thing that I'm doing every single day is I'm talking to a lot of people. Quite frankly, I'm listening to a lot of people, and I'm just collecting data, collecting information. I'm holding space to see what happens, to see what comes out. And as I'm speaking to people and collecting data, I'm looking for patterns. And I'm looking to hear if I hear a similarity on one certain team, or if I hear a similarity on a department, even though the department might be in a different country. It might have legs in a different country. And so as I hear these patterns, that's where we start to deploy more people that are what I like to call culture carriers. By no means is their title culture carrier, although they should put it in their signature. Right. These are people that really get a sense of the water that we're drinking every single day. It's not Kool-Aid, it's water. It's pure, it's real, And so in every office, and certainly in our offices here in New York, which we have 2, I can depend on and rely on using and asking that person or that person or that person to go take that person for a walk or for a cup of coffee or go have a little mini town hall with those 8 people who are just kind of crusty. So that is something that it's like 24/7 job. It's an absolute 24/7 job, which, meeting with people one-on-one, having hangouts with people, going to, I'll start a big round of office visits next week in different countries and different cities. And so making sure that we have that high touch at every single moment. Obviously, Gary is doing the same exact thing. He might be doing 5-minute meetings. He might be doing a lot of texting. But we try to cover and cover as much ground as we possibly can, and ensuring that the culture is still being fed and watered, and so that we can have like new sprouts every single day. I talk in metaphors a lot, but that's what it looks like to me. Quite frankly, it's 800 people now. I think 805 people. I think. And it's a lot. It's just a lot of heartbeats. It's a lot of mouths to feed, and certainly don't need to explain that to Google. But so we've got a lot of learning to do. But I do think that we've implemented some really good, tried and tested abilities now.
Yeah. Are there, in the run up to 800, are there things that you feel like you sort of lost irretrievably, or things that just couldn't survive from the smaller scale to the larger scale?
I don't think we lost them. I think we lost sight of them and then got them back. That's what I think. Okay. So in terms of growing, that's just, for example, like the talent team that's here. I mean, there was a period of time, and there's only about 5 of them in all different countries. And in New York, we've got 3 or 4. But there was a time that they were hiring hand over fist. I mean, we couldn't bring enough bodies into the offices and into our world. And what we lost sight of was training. And what we lost sight of was the orientation. And what we ended up doing is throwing them into a fire without giving them a sense of what's in our DNA, what's in our bloodstream, in our water. And there were moments, I would say, in the last 18 months, 2 years, that you could feel the ground start to, not tremble, but just start to shake a little bit. Mm-hmm. Or the wheels on the bus just start to rattle a little bit. A little harder than I like. I like a lot of speed, but it was a little much. And in those moments, it's, that's something that I talk to Gary about, and I talk to my team about, and we have to kind of do a full court press in that moment. There's some things that we're not going to be able to retrofit and change, mm-hmm. but going forward, we know how important it is to orient. We have a week-long orientation, and how important it is for that employee to really, really connect, get a sense of belonging, tried and true. Like, we want them here. we've gone through 3 rounds of interviewing, maybe 4. And so when they come in, we already have this incredible sense of belief in them. And it takes an employee, obviously, a longer time to believe in the org. But in those cases where we got lost a little bit. And so anyway, we've retrofitted.
And are there things that you find that you can do at scale that you couldn't do when you were smaller?
That, I actually believe, in terms of going back in time a little bit. Back in time is not the right way to say it, because we can't go back in time, but we can certainly go back and have that conversation with that swath of people that we may have missed. We opened up our first international office about 15 months ago in London, and in doing so, we sent out expats to open up the office. One of the things we learned very quickly is, and I worked in London for a significant amount of time, so it's something I knew, but as an expat, it's different with different glasses on. It's so important to get locals in your office and get locals in your office fast. Otherwise, it really is like the American invasion in many ways, and that's not going to work. That's not going to work in another country, but it's certainly not going to work when you are a local and you walk in and there's 8 expats, and they're telling you what to do. So those are things that we've had to look at and reverse engineer as we go forward.
So we're just finishing up our performance management and compensation cycle. Every company has them in some form or another. But those processes, performance management, compensation planning, they're often seen as sort of being directly at odds with the effort to create psychological safety, a culture of trust. How do you handle performance evaluation and rewards without undermining the honey empire?
It's so tough. I mean, this crew in front of me that's on my team they're the ones that take a little bit of the bruising because there is such a juxtaposition between we love you, we believe in you, we want you, you have a home, we want you here forever, here's 6%. Or you just got all 5s on a review form, because we just got out of our cycle as well, and but you're not getting promoted, but here's 10%. These are really hard conversations. I don't have the answer other than so much high touch, and that means spending time with that employee, going back to that employee, letting them know we work for them, working with their manager, seeing how we can, if we're not able to give them the salary increase that they were so hoping for, and it is 6% or it is 8%, making sure that what's in their review in terms of their training and development or their growth plans, we are hitting immediately or as soon as we possibly can. That's one way I think that we can surround that person or that cohort with as much heart, as much honey as we possibly can. Spending time with Gary is always going to be a benefit, and it's weird to kind of dangle that in front sometimes, but it is so incredibly helpful when you get that time with Gary and he's able to, in his own words, really, really hone you into the vision, because the vision is, the vision's amazing. Like the vision of what we're doing, we're building an agency so that at some point in time we can buy brands and own them and create the marketing and awareness for them. Like, that's awesome. There's not a lot of agencies that are doing that. But it is, it's something we need to spend a lot of time with, and a lot of not coddling and not pampering, but just, again, high touch. I say that phrase a lot, but it is really what we do. From a resident on up to an SVP.
And sort of in line with that, as Chief Heart Officer, how do you go about helping someone when they're not succeeding in their role?
So when they're not succeeding in their role, we do as much of a 360 as we can, first and foremost, to find out, is that really true? Or is it just that one person or that one manager from the top down that's like, rah, 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 rah? Because that's not fair.
Right.
So we really try to look at it in a holistic manner and get as much 360 as we possibly can. We put people on performance plans, 30-day, 60-day, sometimes 90-day. In London, we will extend that notice period. We will extend that 90-day trial period if we need to for another 3 months. We want people to be successful. Again, we've invested so much time, as you do too, in recruiting, finding that right talent, bringing them in, orienting. I mean, it costs a lot of money also. Talk about the empire. You know, it's and so when you lose an employee, it costs almost double, triple to get that next employee in. So making sure that we're giving them very specific, clear ways in which to improve that's our job. Actionable, measurable ways to improve. Otherwise, like, that's not fair. You know, so we spend a lot of time doing that. We don't have a lot of people on performance plans. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe we're not looking deep enough. But for the most part, I think coming out of this review cycle right now, I can say that it's a very low percentage, and we're doing our best to get people to get the C's up to a B and to get the B's up to an A. One of the things that we do have that I'm super proud of is we have this alumni program. So if we have a C that we know will be an A somewhere else, or if we have someone that's just not working out, we're just not the right culture, for example, or we just move too fast, we will do our very best as we let them go to find their next interview, to find their next role. And so we can do that based on Gary's network, of course, and based on the enormous amount of job requests he's getting in every single day. Like, hey, do you have a? Hey, do you have a? And so we'll do our best to do the networking and then set them up with that first interview.
So one of the things that I think we've noted in our culture and that we're struggling with is how do you make a manager, right? How do you take somebody who's a tremendous performer as an individual contributor and either determine that they should or shouldn't be a manager, and then make sure they have the manager skill sets, which are actually generally very different from the skill sets that made them successful as an individual contributor. What's your approach to making managers?
So we are in the process of figuring out that training. I'll tell you, unlike I should say, not unsimilar to many agencies. You get promoted and you just rise through a ladder and you just get maybe like a higher salary and more responsibility. But there isn't a lot of manager training in agencies, probably due to the nature of our work, that it's incredibly fast. We're in the service of clients. We have an output. Thank you very much, so forth and so on. And you keep on going on and on and on. Management training is something we kicked off in January in different forms, and that included presentation training, that included radical candor feedback training, that is now including facilitation training. But we are still figuring out what is the right, what is a VaynerMedia manager, recognizing that we want everyone to have uniqueness. And how do we go about having that training? How do we go about, is it one-on-one? I mean, obviously, experiential is the way to do, I believe that we learn faster when we experience it. We either teach it or we experience it. So we're developing those things right now. And I absolutely wish I had a magic wand and we could make that happen faster, but spending time with people and really figuring out what makes them beat, what makes them tick, kind of helping them figure out kind of their own human behavior so that they can be that much more tuned into others, I think is the key there.
All right. I have a couple more questions, but I want to take a minute and just see if there are questions in the audience that... Yeah?
Hi. Hi.
Something that is so important yet I think hard to manage for a lot of people that I know that you've done, having worked with you before really well, is one, found your passion, and then secondly, found a way to get there. I would just love, and I know you mentor a lot of people in that way too, I'd love to hear your perspective on that, tips and tricks of how you kind of found this and navigated your way to there.
Thanks, Carrie. Yeah. Carrie and I have worked with each other about 13 or 15 years ago, so thanks for being the first question. So I love doing coaching and I love mentoring. And throughout my years, whether or not I was at this company or that agency or running my own surfing company, I've picked up a lot of positive psychology tips and tricks along the way, and life coaching and executive coaching tools. And I do a lot of coaching. I call them whiteboard sessions. Some people might call them North Star sessions. But what I find is most important with all people and all human beings is making sure that at some point in our existence we're able to define and touch our purpose. Our passion and our purpose could be very different. One of my passions is snowboarding, but my purpose has nothing to do with snowboarding. So there's a difference there. But so I take people through values exercises. I really like people to be big in the room. That's something I say a lot. So when they're with me and they're in one of these 45-minute, hour-long sessions, what I say to them is like, it's just us in the room, so be big. Like, tell me, really, what is the value you bring to teams? Like, no one's listening, just you and me. Then I'll look at their values. Sometimes I even ask them what they wanted to be when they were kids. What did they want to be when they grew up? Because I think when we go back to the origin of time, when we were just innocent and we wanted to be an astronaut or a film director or whatnot, there's a lot of truth in that. And sometimes there's still threads. There's still like a red thread that runs through from when you were a kid to when you're an adult. I really ask people to, it's a funny little corny question, but to think about in their most innocent of times, brushing their teeth in the morning, just who are they? Like, what are they, where's their resonance? You know, are they mad? Are they like, when you wake up in the morning, who are you? What type of person are you? And then I sew all of that together, and hopefully we land on a guiding principle or a mission statement, something that they are really proud of and they can own. I say, you know, put that in your wallet or, you know, put that on your laptop, because it's unique to each and every individual. And I really think that once, you know, if we're successful, and this might take 3 sessions with them, they go back to their desk and they can use some of that with other people. I mean, that's how I'm scaling myself. Mm-hmm. Quite frankly, aside from the team, if I'm having this incredible interaction with another human being, that they're going back to their desk, their team, their cohort, and they're able to, you know, sprinkle their own magic dust, you know, and that way just the good vibes just keep on going. But that's what I do. I just spend a lot of time doing a lot of coaching and just like creating space for people to just be whomever they want, you know. At VaynerMedia, and I wouldn't doubt at Google as well, we're teaching a lot more than just fundamental skills of how to use Ad Manager or how to be an incredible client service person. I mean, it's life skills. So, you know, yes, you can teach empathy. Someone has to be interested and open to learning. You can teach self-awareness and those types of things. So I think that's what juices me every single day, that I don't have to I'm not just talking about how to get this bottle into more hands, you know. I'm talking about why would you even be interested in getting this bottle into more hands?
You have another question?
Yeah. Hi, thanks for being here. I had the opportunity to see Gary speak for the first time like 2 weeks ago at a conference. And as you all know who probably work for him, he has the energy and ability to kind of mic drop on the whole room and make people like kind of silence after, be like, I want to be a part of what he's doing, or like it's so just engaging. So my question's kind of on the recruiting process. Do you guys find that a lot of your applicants come from like Gary V lovers, like who just are a huge fan of him and want to work for him, or like maybe even some of the recruiters in the room who work at Vayner? Like, what is your guys' process? Do you reach out? Do you have a bunch of people like that who apply? I could only imagine after hearing him speak. So just wanted to know kind of what the recruiting process looks like for you guys.
Yeah, cool. I'll keep me honest, team. But he's absolutely, in fact, he's contagious. I mean, that energy and the mic drop and the realism of him is like something you just want to be around, because there's not many people out there like him, at least that are that you see their content every single day in every single way. So I would say it's split. We hire for skill set fit and a culture addition. If you went into Gary's inbox right now, you would see, I'm sure, probably 300 people that are like, I will work for you for free. And that might have just happened in the last 8 hours. By the time we get to 8 o'clock tonight, there might be another 150 that just want to work for us for free, that is amazing. That is like incredible and an honor. Are those people the right skill set? I don't know. And that's where we have to start culling through some of those CVs if we get. Now, we have specific recruiters that are looking at just media, video production, account, project management, and whatnot. Every now and then we'll get sent one of these people, 2 of these people, or, hey, the owner of the New York Jets has a son, here you go. We have to look through those incredibly carefully. Of course, we'll give someone an at-bat at an interview, that's for sure. If they are a student, we'll hopefully get them into our internship program, which is in the summer. If they are just coming out of university, maybe we can get them in as a resident. Again, the skills are super, super important. Because we move so fast, it's not charity. As Gary would say, he says it a lot. He's just like, what are we doing here? Like, we're working. We're here to work. We are here to hustle, and to be the biggest human agency in the face of the earth. But we really need to take our time and go through those CVs, and that takes a lot of time. And then we have to make sure that we're interviewing really, really carefully. Otherwise, we could just get a lot of Gary fanatics in, and maybe not a lot of the specific work that we need to get done. But it's always fun to see those emails come in. A lot of fun.
Chairman?
Hi, Shamiran. I have a question for you. As VaynerMedia focuses on building a honey empire, or more of a work environment that has more heart involved in getting more comfortable and connected with your employees to make them more productive, and as you know, Google completely sets itself in that way as well, and where work culture is huge and diversity is very important for us, for the benefit of our team and employees. Can you talk about a time where you, using your approach towards connecting with your employees that have made them more productive, and so you can say, yes, this is something more scalable, and do you implore other companies or other agencies for that matter to kind of employ that approach as well?
Yeah, so let's see if I'm tracking correctly. What I think you're asking is a little bit of the training that we do with our employees that is basically kind of geared a little bit towards their performance and their success. So, the honey in the empire portion, maybe like looking at this or looking at what I was talking about in the beginning, which was putting people first. And if you really, really hone in and deploy as much empathy and care and TLC and generosity and giving to employees, that the output is, you just get tenfold more of the output. So we do a lot of, we spend time doing a lot of small town halls, size of this room. Town halls where I will field questions that come at me about our culture or about changes or more transparency. I'll do that because I fundamentally believe we need more communication throughout the agency. And I should say, I started at the agency as a SVP on the client side. And so I can fully remember for those 18 months I was there, I was thinking, gosh, we need more communication from leadership. We need more communication from leadership. And now that I'm in leadership, it's something that I think about all the time. How can we increase our transparency? How can we make sure that we're delivering on the promise of the Honey Empire? How can we make sure that we're delivering that growth and development that we also promised? So spending time with people is super, super important. I've already said that, but making sure that I'm coming in, it's funny. So much of what I do, it comes so naturally to me, and that's the great thing, because I'm living my purpose. To Carrie's question, I'm able to. My purpose is to facilitate growth and change, and people and companies and teams, and be a team builder and be of service. And I'm able to do that every single day. But I realize not everyone is able to do that. So me showing that, I think it's really important that everyone knows that I work for them. There's absolutely no one that works for me. And I will give whatever I possibly can to help someone over that finish line, or help someone from the 10-yard line to the 30-yard line. And that takes a lot of time and energy and effort. But I think that's the wonderful thing about being in a company, especially run by Gary, where he wants to buy the New York Jets, and so we function as a team in many, many ways, and making sure that we're deploying, to your point, deploying as much of that honey in the empire internally, and hopefully there's a trickle-on effect in other companies.
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. How do you scale that? Do you go back afterwards and are you able to scale that dynamic to say this actually works and it's actually making our employees more productive? How do you scale that?
Yeah. The scaling question is such a great question for us, I think, at this size, at the 800 mark, because as I look out on the landscape, it's not anything I'm going to be able to do alone, and it's something that my team can certainly do, but they're going to need extra reinforcements very, very soon, because we can't be in every place at every single time, and in order to track back and see how that employee or that cohort of people is, if there are if their needle has moved since we last trained with them or we last spent time with them, it takes a lot of time and energy, and it takes away from something else that we're doing that might be extremely pressing. So it's really leaning on the culture carriers that we've built right now to kind of be the finger on the pulse for me when I can't be there, or for Gary, and making sure that we can track back and there is something to measure. But growth is something that we can feel. I mean, you can see it in the water. You can feel it. You can certainly feel it when you're with someone, especially because we have people that stay with us, the longevity, for a long time. So you can see how they've ebbed and flown throughout their tenureship at VaynerMedia, and we really use them, quite frankly, to help other people grow and to make sure that we are going back and tying up any loose ends that we may have missed. So it's really human effort. I mean, thank God for Google and Google Docs and Google Forms, because that's what we run on right now. It's human effort, and at some point, we're starting to systematize much more now that we passed the 700 people mark. Thanks for the question.
Oh, we have a question.
So I wanted to zoom out a little bit on a point the previous questioner asked around diversity and inclusion in two dimensions. So one is, especially on the creative side of the agency business, diversity is I would argue, a massive problem in this part of the industry. Women, LGBT, people of color are dramatically underrepresented in every creative agency and every creative department inside companies. So I'm wondering if you could talk about your point of view on sort of like how you acquire that talent. Do you sort of have a specific lens for that or not? And then something that I think is very personal to a lot of Googlers is also how, once those people come in, they do feel that sense of connection, trust, and empathy, so that they do feel included and want to build that sense of loyalty.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's actually one that I love digging into, because, as you said, we're all trying to figure it out. Mapping the macro to the micro, mapping a macrocosm to the microcosm, is much more difficult than I would have ever known, as I'm now looking at it from the top down, and also just like being on the floor. Diversity and inclusivity and they are different things, of course. It's one thing to have a diverse employee nest, if you will, but then to deploy inclusivity and the belonging is, I think, that's almost more challenging. So one of the things that is extremely important to us is creating a safe space where people feel that they can bring their whole selves to work. And that means physical safety and psychological safety. Absolutely, bar none. We were talking about this earlier. It's like literally on my head every single day. Let's start with the candidate experience. When you are a candidate and you walk in, and if you are a person of color and you aren't seeing any other people of color, that cannot feel good. There's just no way. If you are a female and you are being interviewed by males, there's no way that feels good either. So I mean, that's just even talking about like a white female of privilege, So making sure that we have as much diversity in our offices is really, really fundamentally the most important thing that we can do every single day. And that means hiring the best person. Of course, we're going to hire the best person that comes our way. Skill set, culture addition. I like this idea of making sure, or trying to make sure, that our values with that candidate and that candidate are in the same zip code. It's something I was just sharing with the team the other day. I don't expect your value and my value to be completely apples to apples, but I would like them to be similar. That, I think, the value piece of it, I think, does open up gives us a little bit more of an ability to widen our net, or cast a wider net when we are looking for those candidates. Back to creating a safe space where people feel like they can bring their whole selves to work. If you're a person of color, you want to see more people of color. If you're LGBTQ, you want to know that we have a pride group. If you have a learning disability or you're dyslexic like myself, you want to know that we have tools that you can use. If you have a physical handicap, like you want to be recognized for that, not as an other and an outlier, but that we can embrace you and take care of that. So. The 3% conference is going on right now up the street. And one of the things I love about what they've done there is they've called attention to the fact that diversity is so few and far between in creative agencies. The idea of finding that other, especially in senior level creative positions, is really challenging. It's really challenging for us. I'm happy to say we actually don't have stats on multicultural diversity because people can opt out of that question. So what makes me happy is when I walk across the floor and I can see just difference. And I don't mean difference with an X, I mean difference with a capital D, because this room is different. It's something that is just so incredibly important. I can't even stress it enough. It's like, I don't want to even say it's my favorite question to answer, because I don't have the answer, but it is my favorite thing to kind of chew on all together. Does that mean we need to lean in on the 4Ds more? There's pockets in this city and pockets in Chattanooga and pockets in schools that we can lean on to get different talent. It's something we certainly do with our residents and our internship to really make sure we're casting that wide net and able to mirror the macrocosm of this world. And it's something we haven't solved for yet. It is a work in progress, but something that is so near and dear to what I'm doing. Back to Gary, what are we doing here? We have to make sure that we are finding talent that represents this world, and one of the things I'm proud of back at work is that we have squads. We used to call them tribes, in fact, and we took away that word tribes because of the cultural sensitivity. But we have squads, and I like to use the word cohorts quite a bit. And there's a squad that is called the Amigos Squad. And they founded each other. They founded this group, first and foremost, to be able to market to Latinos and the Hispanic culture. And now they've really, it's an open door group, and it's an inclusive group, but it's one that keeps me very, very honest about what we're doing about diversity and inclusivity. And so I'm happy we have that and still a startup, quite frankly. So thank you for the question, and I'm open to any ideas to chomp on for how we solve this. Yeah, thank you. You can tell I'm passionate about that one.
Yeah.
Come on.
So if you're successful in making your workplace a place where people feel included, feel at home, what's your approach to work-life balance? How do you make sure that, is there a danger of tipping that too far where some people might fail to build or maintain their life outside of work?
So the sarcastic me says to you, is there such a thing as work-life balance? I mean, sarcastic and slightly true. What I do is by no means is it 24/7, but I'm working quite a bit. And I'm okay with that because I've chosen this job. I've actually turned over this idea of work-life balance for the moment, and I look at energy management. And that's kind of the term that I look at, and I try to share a lot more of with our employees. We have 80% millennials, so that right there in itself is and we're an agency, so that is as cutthroat as it gets. I mean, you are beholden to a client. And that means you got to get that out when you said you were going to get that out, unless you're going to answer the phone tomorrow with a client breathing down your neck, which happens also. But this idea of energy management is something that makes more sense to me today rather than work-life balance, unfortunately or fortunately. Energy management is really being aware of how you're feeling, where your anxiety level is, where your anxiety level is. Are you at code red? Because if you're at code red, we need to figure out how to get to pink or how to get to an orange. Setting up little milestones across your day to then celebrate, take a break. So you're going to work for 10 minutes. You're going to work for 2 hours on this one project that you're working on, this one spreadsheet or this one deliverable. You're going to get to a stopping point where you can get up, take a breath, and you can go check Instagram for 10 minutes. You can go out, walk the High Line. You can go for a cup of coffee. You can go out to lunch. Those are things, I think, going back to my project management roots, I think are really, really important. I think of, if I'm looking at a Gantt chart of my day and where my energy tips and falls and after lunch and whatnot, just being super, super aware of how I'm feeling inside and how an employee is feeling inside and how that's manifesting, whether or not that's manifesting physically and I'm, maybe someone's grinding their teeth or getting really upset or how that's just manifesting inside with, not feeling good enough about yourself and feeling extremely competitive with that other person or, gosh, you heard that person's getting 10K more and you do the same job. So managing one's energy is super important right now. Yes, having work-life balance is like a dream. I think that if any of us can go back in time and clock in and clock out, as some of our parents did, or work that 8-hour day with a half an hour lunch break, as some people do in Europe, quite frankly, that is kind of utopic. And there are places to do that. I can't tell you that agency life is that place right now, and maybe as we see more remote working, you do that really well. I mean, Google does that extremely well. But agencies are funny because for the most part, you're in roles that you need to be present on a floor for. You need to be able to look across that desk and say, hey, will you look at my deck for a second? There's such a collaborative yin and yang there. So work-life balance is something that I'm aware of. Wish I had that answer too. But time management is where I'm really trying to get more people to focus on and be aware of just how they're feeling in any given moment and when they can just take a time out. Timeouts really, really, really help. And we all deserve timeouts. What are we doing here?
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for coming. We're at time. Let's have a hand for Claude.